Welcome to the relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that BOXREC updated their current pound-for-pound rank standings based on this weekend's action in the lightweight division, and Gervonta Davis has registered in at, get this, number 3, ahead of Dimitri Bivol, Canelo Alvarez.
Usyk isn't even on the list.
All this really does is expose the flaws in BOXREC's algorithm, their point system, and however it is they tabulate these boxers' records based on that algorithm to achieve these ranks. That any rank standing where Gervonta Davis registers in ahead of Canelo or ahead of Dimitri that beat Canelo,
Well, that can't be right.
so when it comes to something as subjective as a pound-for-pound list, I suppose that it all depends on who you ask. That if someone looks at these ranks,
Will they agree?
most people won't. I'm 100% confident. If I conducted an independent poll right now here on this channel or some other social media platform, overwhelmingly, people would say no. Gervonta Davis is not top 3, top 5. Ahead of Canelo Alvarez, who is a legitimate multi-weight champion. He's been a champion at 4 weights. By and large, his quality of competition has been head and shoulders above Gervonta Davis. A few career blemishes aside, he is a more proven fighter at more weights, more times against more champions than Gervonta Davis, having achieved things that he'll never achieve in terms of marquee value at the box office or inside the boxing ring, and yet this is how BOXREC's algorithm ranks them. Clearly, something is wrong here.
You don't have to take it from me. You can conduct an independent poll yourself, and you'll see it arrives at that same conclusion.
Is this another veiled media push to elevate Gervonta Davis to the status of an iconoclast for beating people that everybody expects him to beat?
Or is it just that BOXREC's algorithm sucks dog dick?
Neither would surprise me. BOXREC's function is to service as a record keeper for all of the matches that take place in the sport of boxing involving all the registered fighters, and they do a decent job of doing that, but when it comes to their pound-for-pound list,
It's not credible. It's never been credible.
this is just another example. They have David Benavidez at number 8.
You know that I would put Zurdo Ramirez on a pound-for-pound list before David Benavidez. Yes, I would put Zurdo Ramirez on a pound-for-pound list before David, because Zurdo, like David, was a champion for a long while at 168. He never actually lost the fight at 168. He did lose one at 175, but then he moved up, and then he became a champion at cruiserweight. I don't think David could do that.
Not based on how he looked this weekend with a 37-year-old Alexander Vajdik, who's still a formidable fighter. Still good, I admit, but that's the point. I don't actually think he beat Vajdik.
Some people are pretending that it was a masterclass from David, and it was a shutout based on how the judges scored it. Oh, you always agree with the judges? The judges always get it right?
Well, all right.
Annotations aside, Zurdo Ramirez has done something that David Benavidez has not, and that's just an irrefutable fact. Zurdo is a 2-division champion. He was a champion at 168, just like David, but currently he's a champion at cruiserweight. That's just a fact.
He took on an unbeaten cruiserweight, not a 37-year-old quasi-retired fighter,
He took on a champion.
which is not the first time Zurdo beat a champion to be a champion. You understand that he's got David Benavidez beat out 2 champion scalps to 1. The only champion that David ever fought was Anthony Durrell, and that's not saying much, whereas Zurdo fought Arthur Abraham
It's not saying that much either.
for the WBO title at 168, but many years later he took on unbeaten Arsene Goulamarian for the WBA title at cruiserweight. That Zurdo's been a champion at more weights and fought more champions than David fought, but Zurdo's not here. David is.
Why?
Because either BOXREC's algorithm is flawed or BOXREC's algorithm is being augmented to cater to whoever the flavor of the month is, whoever the semi-quasi-popular fighters are, what fighters are being talked about.
If you've got a list that features Gervonta Davis and David Benavidez, well, I guess being a champion at 4 weights doesn't mean all that much because Kazuto Ioka isn't there, Kosei Tanaka isn't there.
Those are 4 division champions, current reigning 4 division champions. Being a champion at more than one weight must not factor in because those fighters don't even register, but Jaron Ennis does.
David Benavidez does.
Your algorithm must not factor in what fighters have been champions at what weights, how many times, or how many champions they themselves fought, because if it did, Gervonta wouldn't be ranked ahead of Canelo. Canelo fought way more champions than Gervonta.
Current, reigning champions, or former champions. He's fought more of them, but he's ranked 2 spots behind Gervonta.
What?
It's either your algorithm doesn't take these facts of the matter into account. Your algorithm is either flawed or you're deliberately augmenting it so that these fighters can be there. And like I said, neither would surprise me.
I mean, if you want my opinion, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, it's not a good list. It doesn't even make sense. There is no governing criteria to round out this list, and what exactly it's tabulating.
What?
It doesn't make sense in any capacity, way, shape, or form. The list doesn't make sense.
It usually doesn't.
So you can rank them wherever you want to rank them, even if this is a clandestine effort to try to further legitimize Gervonta Davis and David Benavidez as the genuine article. You can do that, but all it really does is hurt your own list's credibility because it doesn't make sense to the people.
Boxing is the only sport that goes against its own facts and stats, its own statistics. Every other organized sport uses facts and stats as a barometer, a year mark for who the best is.
Because you can only rate an athlete, in this instance a boxer, for what he manages to accomplish, what he's done so far.
And Gervonta Davis hasn't done more than Canelo Alvarez.
David Benavidez hasn't done more than Kazuto Ioka or Kosei Tanaka or even Zurdo Ramirez.
He hasn't done more than Shakur Stevenson, who's ranked behind him at number 9.
By any and every quantifiable metric there is, the list doesn't make sense, but it's supposed to because these are rankings.
What the fuck do you think rankings are supposed to be? They're supposed to be structured.
Provide structure because they're based on something. What the fuck is this based on? Elsewhere in the world of boxing, this weekend at the fights, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that, Ryan Garcia took to his social media and took it upon himself to start taking aim at Caleb Plant's wife.
Up until that point, there was a dispute between Caleb and Ryan. Ryan took it a step further by bringing Jordan Plant, Caleb Plant's wife, into this.
And Caleb's not going to take something like this lying down, least of all when it involves his family, his wife, the mother of his children. So he goes to the fights, he manages to bump into Ryan Garcia, chucks a beer can or a beer mug, or
he catches him.
Ryan, who was making his way through the crowd, was basically bubble wrapped inside of a cocoon of security.
Caleb still managed to catch him, but they quickly broke it up,
separated them, and they managed to get Ryan Garcia out of there. What stood out to me is that Caleb didn't have a bunch of security officers by himself, no entourage, not a bunch of people there. It's just Caleb. Caleb all by himself, handling his business, while Ryan was wrapped in a protective cocoon so that he can go back to his social media
to behave like the child that he is.
My thoughts.
Ryan Garcia likely fancies himself a bad boy of some kind for carrying on the way he carries on, but he's really not a bad boy. Mike Tyson, that was a bad boy.
Hector Camacho, Edwin Valero, those were bad boys.
Ryan is a bitch.
Not a bad boy. What passes for a bad boy in this day and age, in this postmodern era of boxing, is tantamount to an internet troll. Ryan himself says, "My mom has cancer. Do you think I give a fuck what people think or say?"
You think that stops you from being a little bitch?
I'm ready for every type of smoke.
Yeah, so long as you're wrapped in a protective cocoon of security guards.
No one will try me. I will bite someone's balls off.
And then what, suck their dicks?
Is sucking Tank's dick after his knockout win over Frank Martin. What kind of shit is that?
He knocks you out so you become his biggest fan? Is that the kind of man you are?
He subjects you to weight stipulations to weaken you, knocks you out, and you show up ringside like his side piece, like his girlfriend. Ryan Garcia may have his father in his life, but his father doesn't seem to have taught him how to be a man. Maybe it's because his father's not much of a man himself?
Not when you're relying on your son to be the breadwinner, your son to be the provider. That's supposed to be what you are.
These aren't men.
So he goes on social media, he says, "Your wife sucked my dick, Caleb Plant, and she works for the PBC. She was sucking my dick. Jordan Plant was yummy.
He said, Caleb Plant just hit me with a beer without me looking, and then he ran.
We saw the video. He didn't run. Security wrapped you in a protective cocoon and carried you away like a newborn baby.
'Cause you're a bitch.
Those security guards weren't there to protect you. He would have smacked the shit out of you like he smacked the shit out of Charlo, and you know it.
You think it's alright to talk about this man's wife that hasn't said an ill word about you and she's not involved, so what if he starts talking about your sick mommy and her situation?
That'd be a pretty shitty thing to do, wouldn't it?
But all's fair in love and war. If it's alright for you to bring his wife into it, who had absolutely nothing to do with the situation you two guys were having, he could just as easily bring your mother into it. The thing is, he's not as big a piece of shit like you are.
He's not a coward like you.
And you are a fucking coward. You went from getting knocked out by Gervonta Davis to being his biggest fan, waving pom-poms for him ringside, sucking his dick?
Bitch.
What kind of limp dick beta male shit is that?
I don't think he's a male. He's probably non-binary or something.
That new age queef jargon from guys like Ryan.
He's doing like a Charlie Zelenoff thing.
Maybe in his mind, he thinks himself a bad boy, a loose cannon. He's out of control when what he really is an internet troll. Not a rebel, not a renegade, just a jackass.
The truth?
Ryan doesn't measure up. And he knows he doesn't measure up. That's why he's taking this approach as no man.
Who is it, man?
He's a bitch. And he acts like a little bitch. Online, he acts like a troll.
He's not acting.
He is a troll. And the only thing he prides himself on is not his fighting ability, it's his youth and his looks, the way a woman would.
Like so many OnlyFans girls do. For $9.99, you can see the inside of their pussy.
See the inside of Ryan's because he's just a bitch, and everybody can see he's a bitch. He figures he'll get away with it no matter what he says and no matter how far he goes because he's still young. Though he won't be young forever.
Yes, the ignorance of youth.
He knows he's not a good fighter. Why do you think he's kissing Tank's ass? He won't be thought of as a Mayweather, or a Canelo for that matter, and he knows that. So he's fully embracing the role of the heel, if you will.
The bad guy.
Though he's not a bad guy like, say, Thanos was a bad guy. A really bad guy. No, Ryan is a coward.
He's not a bad guy like Javier Bardem was in No Country for Old Men. Ryan is a chicken shit.
He's a fucking pussy and a spoiled brat.
Another burnout waiting to happen.
So while he does all of this dumb shit, don't let it bother you. Don't let it bother you too much. Because a piece of shit like Ryan, he ain't got but so much longer left.
Borrowed time, buddy.
We all are. To some degree, though you more so than most, because the brightest stars burn out the quickest.
And you're a star, aren't you, Ryan?
Social media influencer slash boxer slash bad boy. Look at you.
Enjoy it while it lasts, because nothing does.
Las Vegas, here we come, I think words to the effect. Is that top of the CBS shopping list next?
Yeah, it is. And look, people might say that dodging up a tire because he's seen as the number one in the division, and rightly so. He beat Breedis, so I think it's between me and him, 1 and 2. But I wanted to fight him originally when I was meant to fight Lawrence, and there's some contractual issues there with, I think, from his side of thing, management and whatnot. But for me now, it's just about making memories and making. Looking back on a career which is I really enjoyed, and America, everyone wants to fight in America. And then after that, my next 2 fights, if I had a magic wand, would be Zurdo in America, and then Opataya wherever, and I'd love that. That'd be amazing.
So Chris Billam-Smith has publicly expressed his desire to face Zurdo Ramirez in America, and Zurdo has responded by posting correspondence of a conversation, a brief one they had via social media.
Chris congratulated Zurdo on becoming world champion. He said, "Congratulations, let me deal with my next fight in June, and I'll come over to the USA later in the year for a unification," to which Zurdo responded, "Let's go."
Zurdo wrote back sometime later saying, "Congrats on your win. Let me know when you're ready to unify, brother. I'm ready," to which Chris responded, "Thank you. See you soon, champ." So if he comes to America and he fights Zurdo here, whether it's in Las Vegas or maybe somewhere on the West Coast, because Zurdo can move some tickets with a fight like this on the West Coast in California, I would assume that the U.S. broadcaster would be DAZN, as that is where Zurdo fights, and not Peacock, Boxer's U.S. broadcast partner.
No.
If you fight Zurdo in America, Golden Boy will be at the helm of promotion, and the show will likely be broadcasted by DAZN, and obviously in the UK, it'll be on Sky.
But can they agree on a number?
If Golden Boy wants to be at the helm of promotion, to do the fight in America, they've got to pay to play, because believe it or not, Chris Billam-Smith sells well in the United Kingdom, particularly in his native Bournemouth.
You can't cheap out on this one if you want him to come here.
I would say that the cheapest alternative to Chris Billam-Smith would have to be the WBC champion, Noel Gavor. That it might not cost you as much to unify with Noel as it would to unify with Chris. But Chris is the one pursuing the fight. Chris is the one asking for it and saying that he's willing to come here.
So you have to pay him, and you have to pay him well if you want to make it happen.
If it does happen, I favor Zurdo Ramirez to win. And even though Chris Billam-Smith has proven me wrong more than once, I don't think he's proved me wrong here. No, Zurdo Ramirez has added a wrinkle to his game.
It's noticeable.
He's moving more, boxing more, catching and countering and creating space, setting traps, walking his opponents into punches. Unlike how he used to fight at 168 and even 175, he's not just sitting in the pocket anymore, trading punches and applying pressure.
He's more of a boxer now.
That's important because that will allow him to put distance between himself and Chris Billam-Smith in all the ways that Richard Riakporhe didn't this past weekend. Richard allowed himself to get smothered because he's no good on the back foot, and he's not that good mid-range to inside. So if he can't get full extension on his arm, can't get full extension on the punch, he can't generate that devastating power. He's so flustered by the man crashing the pocket. Well, with Zurdo, that'd be a lot harder to do because Zurdo can fight on the back foot now, fight moving lateral, fight on the move. If you want to know how Ramirez versus Billam-Smith would look, just look at Zurdo Ramirez's fight with Arsene Goulamarian. That was pretty much a rehearsal for a Chris Billam-Smith fight. He beat him for the same reason he beat Arsene Goulamarian.
He's moving too much.
Your feet are too slow. So while I think Chris Billam-Smith is a bigger puncher and he's definitely durable, I don't think he'd be able to keep up with and keep on Zurdo Ramirez. It'd be a good fight to watch because Chris has got a lot of heart.
And he's durable.
I don't think Zurdo Ramirez packs a big enough wallop that he would stop him, that he would knock him out, but I do think he would beat him on points, especially here in America, if Golden Boy is at the helm of promotion. That makes Zurdo the house fighter, and in some ways that gives him home field advantage. Even though he's a Mexican national, he's based out of America.
Well, Golden Boy is, and Zurdo primarily fights out of America.
He'd stick and move and punch, walk Chris into shots. Chris's defense still isn't the greatest, he still gets touched up.
Zurdo would touch him.
They're being strategic, they both are. Chris Billam-Smith and Zurdo Ramirez. The most dangerous fight is the Jai Opetaia fight for anybody at cruiserweight right now. And I think they both know that. And I think they're both trying to add a second alphabet title to their collection. So if and when they do fight Jai Opetaia, they can get more money out of it.
They're gentlemen.
They both are, Chris Billam-Smith and Zurdo Ramirez. I've not seen Chris or Zurdo ever be disrespectful to someone they were fighting, someone they were facing. And there seems to be a mutual respect between them.
And a mutual desire to make the fight happen, though. Will it happen?
Golden Boy can't cheap out on this. Chris Billam-Smith ain't some Joe Blow. He does have a major network behind him, granted that it's across the pond.
But they've got money, so you've got to spend some to bring him here.